Hello friends, today we are going to study about the exercise therapy and I chose the topic introduction to movement. Let's see what is in it. If I talk about the introduction to movement, according to you, what is the movement? Any guesses? Yes? See, the movement is, it is a characteristic feature of all the living beings. See, we human beings, we have the certain demands by the environment which we have to fulfill or which we have to do. So it is fulfilled or done by the means of your movement, right? For example, let's say you are very hungry, right? And you need food. For food to bring, you need a movement, right? You have to go to the market or you have to pluck it from the tree, right? Then after that, then also you require a movement. For example, you have to prepare it. For that you need a movement, and once it is prepared, then also for eating it you need a movement, means from picking up for picking it from the plate and putting it into your mouth, you need a movement, right? It is a it is a group of movements, like you first need your extension of arm, your elbow, and then your flexion of elbow, then wrist flexion, then you put it in your mouth. So, for every task which is placed by your environment, you need a movement to fulfill it, right? In the same way, animals also need the same thing. So, we will say the movement is the basic characteristic feature of all the living beings, not only the humans, we say all the living beings. Why it is the basic feature means you have to fulfill or to uh, you have to fulfill the demands of the environment which has been placed on you, right? Means, for example, you're very hungry, like I told you. Anything means you have to do, right, your basic things, your activities of daily living, or you have to respond to the environment. For every task you need a moment, right? So we will say it is a basic and characteristic feature of all the living beings, not only the humans or the animals, but it is a basic, let me write it. So it is a basic feature or characteristic of all the living beings, right? To fulfill the demands placed by the environment, right? Now you understand? Okay, right? So if the definition of the movement is clear, let's jump to the next topic, that is your body levers. Now you see, if you need a movement, or if you I say the movement is a basic feature or characteristics of all living beings, right? Or all human beings also, means we. Then how the movement is happening? We will see that how the movement is undergoing, right? Then we move to the levers. See, movement is only possible by the levers only, right? By your levers. Let me take the pen to make you understand. See, if I talk about the body levers in the human beings or like us, right? If we see the movement is happening in the joints, right? And if you see the levers, we have the fulcrum, your body weight, and your effort arm, right? We will talk in about the levers in detail in another video, but here I'll give you the introduction that how the movement is happening with the help of levers. See, what is the lever? I told you that you have one fulcrum, one is effort arm, and another is weight arm, right? If I talk about the fulcrum, what is the fulcrum? You know, fulcrum is a fixed point where the movement is happening, right? If I talk about our body, For example, if I talk about the movement of the arm, right? What happening is, if I talk about the elbow joint, the movement is happening on the elbow joint, right? So the fulcrum would be your elbow joint, because here the movement is happening, right? It is the base, or it is a point where around the or where the movement is going on around the axis, right? So we'll take the elbow joint as a fulcrum, right? And if I see your bones, bones are your rigid rods, like they are your rigid bars. For example, if I talk about, not about the body, if we talk about the levers, then they are the something rigid bars on which the on which fixed point where the movement is happening, right? If we talk about the body, then our bones are the rigid bars, and our fulcrum is a joint where the movement is happening, right? So if I write, your bones are your rigid bars, and your joint is your fulcrum where the movement is happening. Right? So your bones are your rigid bars, and the joint is the fulcrum where the movement is happening. And for doing the movement, you need some force. This is very sure. Do the any movement on your rigid bars or your bones at the fixed point, where that is your joint, you need a force, right? That is true. And if I talk about, it is very interesting that your structure of the bones or the joint are designed such that it is causing the movement. And if you see in a body, we don't have the fulcrum like that, we have only unidirectional movement. We have the joint where the multi-directional movements are happening, right? Only few exceptions are there where unidirectional movements are there. If we talk about the shoulder joint, we have the flexion, we have the extension, then we have the abduction, adduction, and the circumduction, internal rotation, external rotation. Means on a fixed fulcrum, on one fulcrum, that is your ball and socket joint, the shoulder joint, the many movements are happening. Means it is multi-directional movements which are going on the one joint, right? So we have few exceptions where the unidirectional movements are going on. And if we talk about the joint that is acting as a fulcrum, now you know that how your body is acting as a lever, and how the movement is happening. So it is clear that what is movement, and how the movement is going on, right? Then we go to the next topic. So it is clear, and we move to the next topic. See, before that, we know that the fulcrum where the movement is happening, right? And I told you that whenever the movement is required, it requires some force. So now let's discuss that. Forces applied to the body levers. So now forces would be either internal or external, right? It would be either internal or it would be external. Now see, first understand, if we have to apply the forces, right? If it would be right either internal or either external. See, if it would be internal, so for example, let's discuss first external. For example, if it would be external, what are they? Either it may be the gravity force, right? Or it may be the external force like physiotherapist force. Fine. So if we talk about the internal forces, what are they? They are the muscle contraction or internal force which is being applied. That is your muscle contraction. So the body levers means where the movement is occurring, and let's say in a body where the joint, the movement is occurring. So it will be depending upon the forces applied on the body levers. it would be in two ways, either it would be internal or it would be external. If we talk about the external force, we have discussed it would be your either the gravity force or your physiotherapist force. And if we talk about the internal force, it would be arising internally. So the internal force would be your muscle contraction, right? And now if I talk about the gravity's force, right, it would always be acting in the centers of the earth's attraction, right? And if I talk about the muscle contraction force, right, where it is applied, see, if the muscle is contracting, it will be always applied the force, I'm talking about the force will be always applied to the muscle attaching to the bone, right? The muscle attaching to the bone, the force is applied there. And if I talk about the direction of the force, it will always be in the direction of the muscle. Means when where what is the direction of the muscle, it would be going in that direction only, right? The muscle pull will be in that direction only, right? So it is like that. And if I talk about the let's say, for example, I will make you understand first with the example. uh, See, we have talked about the external forces, that is your gravity force and your physiotherapist force, right? And if I talk about the internal force, that would be acting internally or arise internally, right? It would be your muscle contraction. Clear? Up to here it is clear? So now we will take one example. Let me show you in the new slide. See, I have told you that the forces are applied. How they are applied? See, if I talk about the gravity, it will always be acting on the Earth's directional force or the Earth's center, right? And if I talk about the physiotherapist force, that will be depend that in which direction he or she applies. Direction in which she applies the force, right? And if I talk about the internal force, I told you it is by the muscular contraction, right? And let's take one example to understand it. For example, we will take the biceps, right? We will take the biceps brachii. Now you know the origin insertion of it, right? Let's say we know it's a two joint muscle. See, it will be originating from the upper glenoid tubercle of the scapula and your coracoid process of the scapula, right? And it is coming down and inserting on the radial tuberosity, right? Right? So if I talk about the direction of the muscle contraction or the force applied of the muscle contraction, the force applied will be always the muscle which is attaching to the bone, right? Means either its origin or its insertion. Most probably its insertion, right? So the force applied always be the force applied would be always be on the attachment of the muscle to the bone, right? And the direction is what? See, for example, let me draw it with another pen. For example, see, this is the muscle, and these are the fibers of the muscles. And if we see what is the action of the muscle, what is the action of the biceps brachii, what it does the elbow flexion, right? It does the elbow flexion with supination of forearm. Right? So what it does, the direction of the muscle or the force applied would be always in the direction of the muscle fibers. So your muscle pull will be in the elbow flexion direction. Understand? Up to here it is clear. We have applied the forces to cause the movement, and we have the two forces, that is either your internal or external force, and we have talked about the external forces, that are or your physiotherapy force and your gravity force. Your gravity force is always be acting in the center of the earth's attraction, and your physiotherapist force will be depend upon the physiotherapist. And if we talk about the internal force, that is your muscular contraction, your muscle will be always, your force will be applied that there, that the muscle attachment to the bone, right? And direction of the muscle will be depend upon, or the movement of the direction would be depend upon the muscle fibers. For example, we take the biceps brachii, so it causes your elbow flexion, so your direction would be in the muscle pull, means direction of the muscle fibers, so it would cause your flexion of elbow, right? Understand up to here? And if I have to clear your one more doubt, let me take one new slide. See, we have talked about the movement, what is movement. We have talked about the levers, that how the movement is happening on the body, and we have talked about the forces which are applied to cause the movement. And if I talk about that, the movement is not always due to the one force or due to the two force. It would be due to the compounding of many forces. Compounding means addition of many forces. See, for example, if I talk about the one movement, right? If for example, if someone is pulling you from this side and someone is pulling you from the right side, another side, right? If let's take the example, this is the object and point A and point B. For example, the force of the 10 kgs is applied by the A, and force of 10 kgs is applied by the B. This is the one situation, right? And I'm talking about the compounding of the forces, right? That how the movement is occurring by the different forces or due to the many forces. See here, if let me take one more example, then it is easy to understand. This is the same object, point A and point B. Point B has a 20 kgs force and point A has a 10 kgs force, right? See, if we talk about the situation 1, what is that? That the object, that let's assume it with the O, that O is the object, right? And the A is the force applied and B is also the force applied. That for example, A force applied would be in the left direction is 10 kgs, and B another force is applied in the opposite direction of the another 10 kgs. Then what would be the result? Result would be nothing, means object would be remain in its constant position. Why? Because from the opposite directions same force is applied in both opposite directions, so no movement would be caused, right? If we talk about the situation B, you can see that object O here, right, is pulled by the force A, and another force B in the opposite direction again. And here the two forces are applied, right? But what happened is the point B has the maximum force of 20 kgs and point A has only the 10 kgs. So the object will be moving in the right direction. Why? Because the force applied is more, so the object would be pulled in the compounding effect of the many forces, and the whatever the force is high, it would be move in the that direction only, right? And if here in the C part, if we talk about the another situation, here you can see that force applied B on the object is 10 kgs, while on the A and the force applied on the object by the force A is 20 kgs, right? So the net force is increased in the left direction, so the object would be moving in the left direction. Understand? So I have to, or I am trying to make you understand that the forces are not unidirectional, or they are not only one force. There are many forces to move that to move for the cause of the movement, right? Whichever the direction, in whichever direction the force is more or the effort is more, in that direction the movement would be happen, right? And if the if the movement is both in the opposite direction are same, then the object would not be moving, it would be remaining on the same position. Understand, right? So it here the force applied is also clear. So now let's move to the next topic of the movement, that is the types of movement and posture. See, what are the types of movement now if we have to discuss? What are the types of movement? You know, types of movement are nothing but your the types, right? Your active and your passive movement. These are your types of movement, right? So if we talk in the detail, see, your passive movement is what? For example, your movement, your body is at rest, right? Your body is not moving at all. You are inactive. You are not moving, right? So the movement which is caused by the external force, either your gravity or the physiotherapist or any machine, anything or any force which is applied externally on your body, until or unless your body is not moving or not responding at all, that movement is called your passive movement. Clear? Clear? See, this is your body, and for example your body is at rest, right? For example, your body is at rest, and see, the physiotherapist is applying the force on your leg upwards, right? Upwards, and this is, you know, your body is at rest, your body is not moving, and the therapist is applying the force, or either the gravity is applying the force or some machine is applying the force, right? The external force which is applying on your body until your body is at rest or it is not moving at all, that movement is called your passive movement, because you are not doing anything at all. So that is called your passive movement. Clear? Right? So, and now if I take the example of the active movement, for example, your body is moving, right? You are doing something, right? For example, you are taking your arm upwards. This is done by you, your internal force, your internal muscular contraction, right? So this is called your active movement. Simple. The movement which is performed by the patient or by any person, without any external force, that is called your active movement. And the movement when you are at rest is applied by the external force. That external force could be anything, your resistance, your physiotherapist force, your gravitational force, your machines, anything that is externally applied until or unless you are making any effort, that is called your passive movement. And active movement is what? Whenever you applied the or you cause any effort, right? If you are applying any effort or you are doing something with your body, that is called your active movement, because it is performed by the patient itself or by you itself, right? And if it is your body is at rest, you are not doing anything, your external and the external forces are applied, that movement is caused, and then the movement is caused, that movement is called your passive movement. Clear? Right? So these are your types of movement. And if we talk about the posture, what is posture? In the same way, your static posture or uh, your dynamic posture. See, for example, static posture is what? Whenever your body is at state of rest, right? And the posture which is assumed by your muscle or the contraction of the muscle, that is called your static posture. And if you are doing something, and for example you are moving and you are doing something, the state of the muscular contraction in the movement, right, that is called your dynamic posture. Means whenever your body is moving or you are doing something, the posture acquired by your body, or the you say the attitude acquired by your body, is called your dynamic posture, right? So we have the again two types, that is your static posture and your dynamic posture. See, your balance forces are all acting in your static posture also, as well as your dynamic posture also, right? When you are at rest, your body is assuming a posture or attitude that is called your static posture. And to maintain that posture, balance and equilibrium is acting on your muscle, means your muscles are balancing it between each other, right? And due to that the posture is maintained, that posture is called your static posture. And until or the moment you start the movement, right, the moment you start the movement or doing anything, that the attitude of the posture that body attains while moving, that is called your dynamic posture. In that also your body is doing work, due to that your balance and equilibrium is attained itself. That okay, that we will talk in detail in another videos, that how it is attained. But here you have to understand that what are the types of movement and what are the types of posture. Is it clear? So if it is clear, then we will move to the next topic. See, now we will see the types of muscle contraction, right? So what is the types of a muscle contraction? Means we have to talk about the types, right? If we see, we have the two types of muscle contraction, that is your isometric and your isotonic. See, for example, I told you that so far we have discussed about the types of movement and posture. Now we will see the types of muscle contraction. Here we have to see the muscle is contracting, but in how many types, right? Your muscle which we are talking about, in the internal force, that is a muscle that is contracting, but in two ways. Either it will contract isometrically or it will contract isotonically, right? Let's understand this isometric, right? What do you mean by iso? Let me take the another pen. See, what do you mean by iso? Iso means same, right? And metric means your length. See, I have discussed the example that if the object is placed in the center, right, and from both sides, in the opposite sides, the object is pulled, but with the equal force, right? But with the equal force, with that force applied is A and B. We have discussed the example, right? But with the equal force, the object would be not moving, right? So for example, if I take here one example of again the elbow flexion, right, that is causing the biceps brachii. If you can see me that if the see, if here my external force is applied by the physiotherapist or with my another hand on the distal wrist, right, and I am giving the force or applying the force with my another hand downwards, right, means in the elbow extension I am giving the force with the another hand or applying the force with the another hand, right, but what my this hand is doing, on which pressure is applied, that has to take the arm upwards, means that has to cause the action of biceps, that is elbow flexion, right, and my this hand is doing elbow extension, right. See what is happening, there is no movement, but if you can apply it on yourself, pause the video and just apply it. If you can see, you feel the contraction over here, right? If you can see, you can feel the contraction in your biceps, right? Why so? Because your muscle is contracting to cause the action of biceps, right, but your force is external force is applied in the opposite direction, so the length is not changing, means your muscle direction of the pull is not doing, direction of the muscle pull is not working, but the force is applied on the muscle, so muscle will be contracting in isometric fashion, means muscle is contracting but the length is not changing, length would be same, so same length, that is isometric, length would be the same but the muscle is contracting, that is under your isometric contraction, right? Have you understand this, right? You can take any muscle example. For example, I am doing the wrist flexion, right, and my another hand is applying the force in the opposite direction of the wrist flexion, so my wrist flexors, if I started applying the force, my wrist flexors are working, right, my wrist flexor muscles are contracting isometrically, but the length is not changing, means it is not showing the flexion, okay, but you can feel the contraction of your wrist flexors, means that is contracting isometrically because the muscle is contracting to cause its action, but another force or external force is applied, so your length of the muscle fiber is not, means direction is not applying, but the muscle is contracting, so the muscle is contracting in the isometrically fashion, means it is contracting but the length is not changing, so it will be isometric, fine, understand? So here we write the muscle is contracting but without change in length, right? And if I talk about the isotonic, it is different. See, now you can say iso means same, tonic means tone. Now the muscle is contracting again. Either it would be, means if the tone is same but the muscle is contracting, means the direction will be changing, right? But the tone of the muscle would be the same. See, muscle is contracting either concentrically or it is going far away, right? So it means length of the muscle is changing and the muscle is contracting. Now you got it, got my point? For example, my again I'll take the example of biceps only, right? If I applied the force, right, if I applied the force externally, right, if I applied the force externally but the application of the force which is applied externally is less than my internal contraction of the muscle. I told you, if the force of the if the force which is applying on the object is more, the object will be move in the direction of the more force, right? So here I take the example of the elbow flexion only. If my external force, my another hand is applying the applying the force in the opposite direction at the distal wrist at the distal wrist, but the force is less, right? And my muscle is contracting, or my biceps force is more, which is contracting internally. So it will be changing the length, means it will contracting or it will be moving, right? So what is isotonic? The muscle is contracting with the change in length of the muscle, because here the length is changing, right? But in isometric contraction the length is not changing. Got my point? Right? Now we will move to another topic, that is your type of muscle work. Now if you understand isometric and isotonic contraction, then only you can see the type of muscle work, right? See, you know what is muscle work or what is work? The definition of the work is force into perpendicular distance, right? Means the force which is applied and the distance which it is covered due to the application of force, that is your work, right? And if we see, we have the three types of work depending upon the muscle contraction, that is your static, right? Second one is your concentric, and third one is your eccentric. See, you understand the type of muscle contraction. We have the isometric and isotonic. Based on that only we have the muscle work, right? If we talk about first one, that is your static muscle work. See, listen to me very carefully. See, your isometric contraction. We know the muscle is contracting, but the length of the muscle remains same, right? Because the movement is not happening. I told you in the first example, if the object is placed in the center and both and the forces are acting oppositely with the equal forces, means your external force which is applied and your internal force which is applied through the muscle are acting, or are of the same magnitude. Means if the internal force is of 10 kgs, your external force is also of 10 kgs, means that your muscle is contracting but the length remains the same, right? So if we see in the static muscle work, we know the formula of the work is, we know force is 10 kgs, right? And the 10 kgs of the external force also. So but the perpendicular distance covered is 0. So your work done would be, your work done would be 0. Understand? So means your muscle would be remains in the same position, so that is why work is not done. So that is why they are considered under the static work. Clear? It's very easy. I'll make you understand it again with the example. For example, on the biceps only, because I'm taking the biceps because I am making you understand with that only. Otherwise you can take any of the muscle, right? For example, see, bicep muscle, what is the action? Elbow flexion, right? And the internal force is of the biceps to cause the elbow flexion, but here I am applying the external force at the distal wrist in the opposite direction, right? Means I am not allowing the biceps to flex. right? In the same magnitude, means my biceps is also applying the say 10 newton force, and my external force is also applying the 10 newton force. What will happen then? See, you can do it on yourself and feel the movement, or feel the contraction. Actually, the movement is not happening, right? You can feel the contraction. You can feel the contraction in your biceps, but the muscle is not changing its length, right? Means your type of contraction would be isometric, and type of muscle would work would be static, because the length of the muscle fiber is not changing. The muscle is remaining at the same position. It is at the static position. So your work done would be static muscle work. Clear? Okay, let's move to now concentric and eccentric. These are related to your isotonic muscle contraction. You have seen that in isotonic muscle contraction, if my external force is applied is the greater one, right? If my external force is applied the greater one, then the muscle which has to perform its action, it is unable to do, right? So the force which is applied externally, it is moving the muscle in that direction. You know, we have discussed the example. Let's see here. Your for example, your external force is your A, right? And your internal force or the force applied by the muscle is B, and we can presume the example C, right? We can presume the example C here, right? You can see here that your external force, which is A, that is applied in the direction opposite to the bicep muscle. Here we are discussing about the biceps, so I'll make you understand with that example only, right? For example, here we are taking the external force of the 20 newton, okay, or the 20 kgs, and I am applying the force on my distal wrist 20 kgs, but my bicep has to do what? It has to pull my elbow and cause the elbow flexion, but it has the magnitude of 10 kgs. Are you getting my point? It has the magnitude of 10 kgs. So what happens is my biceps is contracting. It is contracting, but it is unable to overcome the force which is applied externally, right? So the movement would be occur in the A direction, means your external force, right? So your movement would be like this, right? Your extension of elbow. So what is the contraction of the muscle which is happening on the biceps is your eccentric contraction, means it is lengthening of the muscle which is occurring, right? You can understand, it is the lengthening of the muscle. If it is contracting, then the muscle fibers would be coming closer to each other. Your origin and insertion are will be coming closer to each other in the second case. You can understand over here. For example, your external force is your 10 kgs and your muscle contraction would be your 20 kgs. For example, I am applying the force on the distal wrist again with the 10 newton. But now the muscle has the more magnitude of 20 newtons or 20 kgs. So the action would be in the response of the muscle because it has a large magnitude, right? And the movement would be in the direction of the muscle only because it is applying the with the higher magnitude. So the work done would be, means your insertion and origin are coming closer, so contracting and coming closer na. So the work done would be your concentric muscle work, right? Right, you understand here now, right? Make the I'll make the diagram to make you understand more. See, I have told you the static muscle work. For example, if you are taking the biceps only, right? Biceps, we are talking about the biceps only, okay? I'll not write here. Okay, let me write over here, then it will be more clear, right? And your internal force is by the muscle, right? And it is causing the origin and insertion to come close together, right? Means if your biceps is contracting, it would be causing the flexion of elbow. But here if the external force is applied, right, if the external force is applied, so it would be making the elbow to extension, means it is applied in the opposite direction, right? If the biceps force, let me take another pen, if the biceps force is 10 kgs or 10 newtons and the external force is also applied of the 10 newtons or 10 kgs, then your work would be your static muscle work, right? Your static muscle work, because no movement is happening, right? But your muscle is contracting now. Muscle is contracting, either movement is happening or not. So your isometric work is done, or your isometric contraction with no movement is occurring, so that is your static muscle work. Clear? Clear? Okay. Now we will take the example of eccentric. With the same muscle, if we have to talk about the same muscle, suppose your biceps only, right? See, now here the force of the muscle is 10 kgs or 10 newtons and the external force would be 20, right? And the, wait, I'll write it properly so it will not cause you any confusion. 10 newtons, right? And it is 20, the external force. See, external force is doing what? It is doing the elbow extension, and the internal force is your muscular force. What is the action of the biceps? It is the flexion of the elbow. But here the magnitude of the external force is large, right? So the net result would be your extension of the elbow, means your elbow would be moving in the extension position, right? So either your muscle is contracting, so it is contracting isotonically, either your muscle is contracting but it is and the length is also changing, but it is in the eccentric form. Eccentric means you're lengthening, muscle is lengthening, na, it is not contracting, because the intramuscular tension is there, but the length of the muscle is, the origin and insertion are coming apart from each other, they are going apart from each other, means your origin is here and insertion is here and the extension of movement is occurring, so the muscle fibers are coming in the form of lengthening position, so your muscle contraction would be eccentric isotonical contraction and work done would be your eccentric work done. Clear? Clear? Now we will take the example of the concentric, right? Let me take the new slide to make you understand this, because this slide is fully filled. See, now we will talk about the concentric muscle work, right? And we have see the third example which I have told you. See, this is your muscle, for example your biceps muscle only, again, okay, and the force now applied by the muscle is the 20 newtons or 20 kgs, and the external force which is applied to make the extension of the elbow is the 10 newtons or the 10 kgs. Understand? Now what would be the net result of the compounding of the forces if we apply? See, the muscles are acting in the opposite direction, right? So the muscle which is acting internally, that is your muscular force, that is of 20 newtons, and it is causing the action of the elbow flexion, means your region and insertion are coming closer, right? and while your external force which is applied, so it is causing the extension of the elbow, but the magnitude of the force of is larger of your muscle. So the the final result would be the muscle would be flex. Okay, so the elbow flexion would be occur, right? Because origin and insertion are moving closer to each other, right? And they are contracting, so that is the muscle work would be done are of concentric type, right? And the if we talk about the contraction, it would be isotonic, concentric, because origin and insertion are coming closer, right? And work done would be your concentric work. Clear? Clear? So this is your type of muscle work. Your static muscle work, your concentric muscle work, and your eccentric muscle work. Now you understand, you can relate it with this slide which I have told you, right? The forces, if they are acting in the opposite direction, right, the net result would be the compounding of the forces. If we see the magnitude of the force which is larger, the muscle would be going in that direction only. Clear? Or the movement will be occur in that direction only. Clear? Right? So type of muscle work is clear to everyone. If it is clear, let's move to the another topic, that is your range of muscle work. Now see, what is the range of the muscle work? See, the range of the muscle work means in the muscle work which is done in the range means what is the range of the muscle, right? For example, if we see again the biceps only, I'm taking because you can relate to it, right? With the one example only, you can take it of any muscle, right? If we talk about the biceps muscle, what is its range, right? What is its range? 0 to 145 degree, and extension is from 140 or 135 or degree to 0. Clear? So it is its the full excursion. Excursion means the range, the excursion of the muscle, right? The range of the muscle to which it can fully contract or it can fully extend, that is the range of the muscle work, right? If we see, we have the range, for example, that is your full range, your inner range, outer range, and your middle range, right? See, your full range means for example your elbow flexion, right? Full range is from 0 degree, right? 0 degree extension to full 135 degree flexion, right? That is your full range of the elbow flexion or full range of the biceps muscle. Clear? This is your full range. And what is the inner range? Inner range means from the partially flexed, from the partially flexed or partially flexed muscle to the fully flexed, right? This is your partially flexed to the fully flexed is called your inner range. Means when your muscle is partially contracted to the fully contracted, that is called your inner range, right? Like same, your outer range is your when your muscle is partially extended to fully extended. Clear? Means it is in the lengthening position, but it is in the partial lengthening position, right? The from the partial lengthening position to the fully lengthening position is your outer range. Clear? That is your outer range. Means your full range is from your fully flexed position or your fully contracted position to your fully lengthening position, that is your full range. Clear? And any range which is between the partially contracted position to the fully contracted position is called your inner range. And if you talk about the outer range, that is your from the partially extended position to the fully extended or the fully lengthened position is called your outer range. And if we talk about the middle range, that is not your partially contracted or your fully lengthened. Means it is not a fully lengthened or fully contracted. It is lies in between. So that is called your middle range, right? Your middle range is very important because most of the activities which are done by your human body or in the daily to day to day life is occurring in the middle range only, right? And your fully range activities are not possible in everyday life. This can be done only in the emergency conditions or you are practicing something, right? So your most of the activities are occurring in the middle range, right? So you need to be strengthened your muscle in the middle range is very important because your most of the activities are your ADLs are mostly performed in the middle range activities, right? Clear? So range of the muscle work is clear. Let's revise it very quickly. Your full range is from fully contracted position to the fully lengthened position, right? And your inner range is from the partially contracted position to the fully contracted position. And your outer range is from the partially extended or lengthened position to the fully lengthened position. And middle range is lies between your contracted and lengthened, means it is lies in between. It is not either not neither your fully contracted nor your fully lengthened position. It is lying in between, right? So that is your middle range. Is it clear? Range of muscle work, it is very important because you need to know the range of the muscles of every muscle, right? Means for the joint, for example, if you have to do the shoulder flexion, you need to know the range of the muscle. Then only we can make the exercises in the particular ranges. Clear? Okay, so this is your range of muscle work. So now we will move to the next topic. As far we have discussed the range of muscle work, now the topic to discuss is the strength of the muscle contraction. See, now the strength, the ability to contract, right, of the muscle contraction. See, the strength of the muscle contraction, it depends that, or the strength of the muscle contraction is the contraction of the muscular fiber, right, or the muscle, intramuscular tension, right? That is the muscle contraction, and the strength is do how much it is contracting with how much strength, right? So if we talk about, it varies. For example, if we say, let's take the example of biceps only. If my bicep is contracting, right, and if I applied the external force on the distal wrist, right, in the opposite direction, so first the bicep is contracting without any resistance, right? It requires the less strength, right? But as soon as the external force is applied in the opposite direction to contract the biceps needs the more strength to contract or more force to contract, right? Understand? So it varies. The muscle strength varies according to the force applied, means external force applied on it, right? So it varies according to the external force applied on it. Let's write here. For example, if we take the example first, without any without any external force. Second one is with external force. Right? So without any external force, if we have to say the muscle or contraction, the strength, right? The strength which the muscle is required is less, right? Means less muscle strength is required. So less muscular strength is required to contract the muscle, right? But if we talk about the that if as soon as the external force is applied, right, as soon as the external force is applied, the muscle strength required is more. Now the muscle strength required is more because the in the opposing direction the external force is applied, right? So the muscle strength is required more to to contract, right, or to perform its action. Clear? So with this, we can say the muscle strength varies with the force applied on it, right? So as soon as the muscle external force is not applied, we require the less force, but at the time when the external force is applied, we require the or the muscle required the more strength. So the muscle strength varies of the muscle contraction according to the force applied on it, right? And now if we have to say, let me take the new slide to make you understand this. Okay. Okay. Okay, we have discussed that the muscle strength required or muscle strength varies as soon as the force applied on it, right? Now we know. But if I say, the muscle strength depends upon the motor unit, right? The requirement of the muscle strength or the development of the motor strength, development of the muscle strength, it depends upon the motor unit. Now you know what is the motor unit? What is it? Okay, if I explain you the motor unit, what is that? The single neuron, the single neuron, okay, you know now what is the neuron. If you don't know, please check my video in the introduction to the nervous system, you can find over there, right? A single neuron along with the fiber or the nerve, these fibers which supplied the muscular fibers. For example, this is the muscle and these are the muscle fibers of the muscle. And if we see here, let me take the another pen. See, this is supplied here to here to here, for example, right? Okay, so this is your one motor unit. What is the motor unit? Your single neuron and the nerve fiber which and all the nerve fibers which supplied your group of the muscle fiber, right? Means from the single nerve or the single neuron, the endings that supplies the number of the muscle fibers, right? This is a muscle, so it supplies the number of the muscle fibers, and this is the muscle fiber. Each this is the muscle fiber, right? So it constitute your one motor unit. Now my question arises that you understand that the strength of the muscle contraction, that as soon as the external force is applied, the strength of the muscle required is more to contract, right? And the strength depends upon the motor unit. Motor unit is what? A single neuron and the nerve endings of the single neuron that supplies to a group of the muscle fiber, that constitutes your one motor unit, correct? And now if I have to say that you have to you need the weaker contraction, right? If for example I am writing here, See, for example, if you need the contraction that is not much, means your external force is not applied, right? So number of the motor units would be contracting less to cause that much of the strength in the muscle, so that it can contract the muscle. Are you getting my point? For example, I can make you understand this with one example. See, your bicep is contracting, but external force is not there, or if it is there, it is not applied. The magnitude is not much of the external force, right? As compared to the internal force, then you require the less, or the your strength would be required is less to contract the muscle, right? So your motor unit would be less, means you need less motor unit to contract. Okay, but as soon as your external force is very high, or the magnitude of the external force is much, you need much stronger contraction of the muscle. So you need to contract the muscle fibers with the all the motor units. For example, I make here, see, for example, this is the one neuron, and it is supplying, this is a muscle, right? And these are the muscle fibers, and it is supplying three muscle fibers, for example, right? And it is the another neuron. I'll take the another pen so it will be more clear to you. Okay, let's take the green pen, right? So it is the another neuron, and it is supplying another group of neuron muscle fibers, right? And for example, another neuron, let's say the third neuron, and it is supplying the another group of muscle fibers. Understand? So the one motor unit is if your one neuron along with its nerve ending supplying the group of muscle fibers, that is your one motor unit. But now here we have the many motor units, right? Right? So if you need the strongest contraction, if you need the more contraction or the strongest contraction, you need to stimulate all these motor units. All these motor units, if you stimulate, then your muscle contraction would be, the strongest muscle contraction. Clear? Clear? Is this point is clear? It's nothing but if you have to make the weaker contraction, or your external force is not that much to overcome, then you require a less force, right? Means you not need to contract the all the motor units. Now you know the what is the motor unit, right? And but if you require the strongest contraction, then you require the number of the motor units, right, to be stimulated, so that it stimulate and contract your all the muscle fibers in the muscle, so that your contraction which is gained, that is the maximum contraction. Clear? Clear? So this is the strength of the muscle contraction. Is it clear? Then we will move to the next topic. Okay, now see the group action of the muscle. See the muscle, if we see the action of the muscle never works individually. For the movement to be caused, muscles have to be work in the group, right? So that is called your group action of muscle. As far we were discussing and taking the example of the biceps, I for the elbow flexion, right? If we have to cause the movement of the elbow flexion, the biceps individually cannot play the role. Okay, the means the biceps individually cannot flex your elbow. To do that, or to cause the movement of the elbow flexion, we need a group action of the muscles. Means we need many muscles to work in the function to cause the movement of elbow flexion, so that the integrity of the muscle, or the muscles to working together in to cause the movement, that action is called your group action of muscles. Clear? So it's not the perfect definition, but it will help you to understand it. The integrity of the muscles or the group, no, you can write or different muscles working together to cause a movement or to make a movement are called or is called group action of muscles, right? Means if you need a movement, right? If you want to do a movement, your single or individual muscle cannot perform the movement. Means to cause a movement, you need different muscles to play in the action, right? To make a means to cause a movement, different muscles are required to perform its action at the different level. So that action which is performing by the different muscles, that action is called a group action of muscles because they are working in a group to cause a movement, right? Group action of muscle. Here I will write movement, right? Means to cause a movement, the action of the muscles are required in group. That is called your group action of muscle. Clear? So to understand it, we need to understand some terms. Let's see that. That is your agonist, your antagonist, your synergist, and your fixators. Right? See now, if you have to cause a movement, I'll take the example of biceps brachii only because we were discussing that, right? You can take any muscle, right? For example, you have to move or you have to cause a movement. Then the action of the muscle which is causing that movement, right? The primary action of muscle that would occur in the that would call your agonist. So your agonist will also call your prime movers, right? Agonists will also call your prime movers, right? And if I say antagonist, they are acting opposite to agonist. Anta means opposite. Anta means opposite, right? Opposite to agonist, right? So the agonists are the prime movers and antagonists are acting opposite to the agonist. Don't write it in the exams, the definitions of it like I am giving you. This is for your understanding. Means if you remain if you keep it in the mind, these definitions or these points, you can easily understand it, right? Synergist is what? Synergists are the helpers, right? They are the helpers. What they do? They help you or they help by modifying the action, modifying the action of pull of the muscle, and helps agonist. Means you have to do the movement and they are doing the agonist, and all these other three are doing what? They are helping the agonist, right? And fixators are doing what? By the name only it suggests it fixates, means it fixates your joint or whatever, right? As in order to make the movement smoothly, right? I should write it very clearly. I'm very sorry, my writing is not that good, but I'm trying for you to make the movement smoothly, right? Now if you understand this, see, your agonists are your prime movers, means whatever the function you are doing or whatever the action you want to perform, that is caused by your agonist. Antagonists do what? They are acting opposite to the agonist, and synergists are helping your agonist by modifying the action of the pole of the muscle, or your 2 or 3 joint muscle is acting, so they modify the action by helping the agonist, right? And fixators does what? Fixators are do the what? They fixates your the joint, they fixates your joint, means for example, the movement is causing, or the movement has to be happen at your elbow joint, so your shoulder joint, means proximal to it, is has to be stable. Otherwise, see, for example, I am flexing my shoulder joint and then I am performing the elbow flexion, then it would not cause the efficient movement. To cause the efficient movement, fixators do what? They fixates your proximal joint, right? Clear? Now let us take one example to understand it more clearly. See, for example, we take the example of elbow flexion only, right? Let me write here elbow flexion, not the biceps brachii. Elbow flexion, right? We will discuss all the components which are involved in the group action of muscle, that is your elbow flexion, right? And see, now if we have to talk about the elbow flexion, first component is your agonist. So what will be the agonist for the elbow flexion, right? Say elbow flexion and supination, right? What would be the agonist? Your biceps brachii, right? Your biceps brachii are your agonist, because they are the prime movers, they have to cause the movement at the elbow, right? And if I talk about the antagonists are opposite to the biceps brachii, means the biceps brachii doing what? They are doing the elbow flexion. Opposite to it is what? Elbow extension. So elbow extension is done by your triceps, right? So they will be your antagonist. Fine. If your agonist for the elbow flexion are your biceps brachii, then your antagonist would be triceps, right? Your triceps brachii. And if I talk about the synergist, here what are helping your biceps brachii? Your brachioradialis. Good. So this will be acting as a synergist because it modifies the action. And if I talk about the fixators, what fixes your elbow? Shoulder joint, means your movement is has to be happen on the elbow joint. So to fixate the shoulder joint, what muscle is activating? Your deltoid, right? Your deltoid will help the shoulder to stay in the position so that your elbow alone can cause the movement. Okay, means it will take care that there will be no movement at the shoulder joint. Clear? So this is the your group action of the muscle, your agonist, antagonist, your synergists and your fixators. Clear? So if it is clear, then we will move to the next topic. Before that, we will revise it very fastly or very quickly. Your agonists are your prime movers. Your antagonists are opposite to your agonist, means for example your triceps brachii in the case of elbow flexion, and your synergist, it helps or it aids your agonist, means it will modify the action of the muscle, right? And fixators are doing what? They fixes your proximal joint so that the movement is occurring efficiently at the joint which is causing. For example, at the elbow joint, if the movement is occurring, so your shoulder joint has to be fixed. Clear? Okay. So now let's move to the next topic, that is your patterns of movement. So what are the patterns of movement? So if we see in the everyday life, we have the many functions to do, right? So for causing or to doing that functional movement, we have many patterns. We have different or variety of patterns which are performed in everyday life, right? So that variety of patterns, if I talk about, first of all, variety of patterns are performed in everyday life. Means you are doing variety of patterns to do one function. For example, you are playing or you are taking something from the shelf. You are performing the variety of patterns from different joints. Means from at the different joints, multiple movements are occurring, right? So many joints are involved, right? So these variety of patterns which are performed, the variety of patterns, they are called your mass movement, because they are occurring at the multiple joints, right? Now if I have to say, if the pattern which is involved or where your single joint is involved, right? Means the pattern which is involved or your single joint is involved, but you have to you have to learn from these mass movements only, but have to learn from mass movements only, right? So these are your means this require your conscious learning. See, for example, you know how to move your arms, how to move your legs, right? How to move your alternative legs. But for example, you have to learn some skill. This is your mass movement, right? Means on every joint you can perform the movement. You can do the elbow flexion, you can do the shoulder flexion, you can do the circumduction, right, with both the hands. You can do the hip extension. But if you have to learn one technique, right, for example, if you have to learn the swimming, okay, then you need to know very precise movement on a single joint, that is also gained from your mass movements only, right? Means you have to gain the movements which you are already know, right? But you have or you are already familiar with, but you have to gain its precision on every joint, right? That is called your what? That is called your movements which are learned from your mass movements only, but it requires your conscious learning, right? So that is the different pattern of the movement, where you have to involve in a skill movement, or you have to learn a procedure where you have to involve the many joints, but at the single joint you have to involve the precise movement, but you are learning that from the mass movement only, right? So this require your conscious learning, right? So it require your conscious learning. Clear? So these are the patterns of the movement. Clear? Your patterns of movement are nothing but the variety of movements. Means variety or the different type of movements which you are performing. So if we see in day to day life, you are performing different types of movements at every joint. So these are called your mass movements, because these do not require the precision at each joint. But if you have to do some activity or the skill movement, you have to take these precisions from these mass movements only, right? But with the conscious or a very precise learning. Clear? So these are your patterns of the movement. So if it is clear, then we will move to the next topic, right? So the next topic is timing in movement. It is very important, because in the movement, if you talk about the time, right, in the to movement to cause or the movement to happen, the time plays a very important role, right? Let's see how. For example, you are performing one movement, right? Let's say for the time being, I am taking the example of shoulder flexion only, right? For example, I have to do the shoulder flexion, right? That is the movement, right? But if I do it very slowly like this, the movement would not be effective, na? Means at some joint it is doing something, at another joint it is doing something, because my timing is faulty, because my time is very slow. And if I do it very fastly, like this, the movement then is also not efficient, because the timing of the movement is not accurate. It is either very fast or it is very slow, which I am doing, right? So it is called your faulty timing. For the movement to be very efficient, or the movement to be very effective, your rhythmic timing should be there, right? Means your timing should be sequenced, so that your movement should be so that your movement is happening effectively. Clear? Now for example, if we take the again the skilled movement, for example, we are learning the swimming, okay, or we are learning the dancing. So the timing is what? Timing is the sequence. Timing is the sequence in the movement, right? Your timing is the sequence in the movement. For example, see, in the swimming, what you have to do is, first of all, after the floating, you have to, in the freestyle, you have to kick your legs, right, to remain float, right? You have to kick your legs, along with you have to move your arms, right, in the vice versa. Means first of all you will take your one arm back, and then after that you will take your another arm, right? So if see, for example, if in the swimming we are not or we are kicking very slowly, or we are kicking very fastly, along with we are taking our arm very slowly, then it means the time is very elapsed, because our arm, when it should be reached in the front, it is at the behind only. So you think that movement is acting efficiently, or the swimming is acting efficiently? No, you will be drawn then, right? Because you are not doing the movement very efficiently on the proper timing. Means, so the timing plays very important role. Your faulty timing is what? Either you cause the movement too fast, or you do it very slowly. In both the ways, your movement would be not efficient, right? For the movement to be efficient, your timing should be scheduled, so that you are not very slow and you are not very fast at the or in causing the movement, and you done it on the perfect timing and in the coordinated fashion. See, in the dance, if you see, if you have seen in the dance, if one is, it is a group dance, right? And if one is not performing, or one is performing very slowly, and another candidate is very performing very fastly, and the middle candidate is doing at the perfect timing, right? The you think the movement is coordinated and you like it? No, na? That is the example, or that is the analogy of the timing the movement. For example, the analogy of it is to the dance, right? Group dance. If you see, in the group dance, what happened is, if the one candidate is performing very fast, another candidate is performing very slow, does the both candidate can coordinate with the normal movement candidate? Means the candidate which is performing normally? No, na? Means then the dance form would be not coordinated, and it won't be efficient, and you don't like it. And if the dance is very coordinated, each and every candidate is taking the same arm at the same timing, you will like it, na? Like for example, in the group of the marching, means the marching what happens is that in at each beat of the drum, they all the soldiers taking the one arm in the front, and at the another beat of the drum they are taking the another arm. So it is a coordinated movement. Why? Because it is scheduled timely, means at every time they have to coordinate with the movement, means if they don't have to either do it very fast or very slow, but the sequence of the movement is maintained, means the rhythm of the time is maintained, then only your movement would be efficient. Clear? So if it is clear, then we will move to the next topic. See, now we will talk about the rhythm of the movement. What do you understand by the rhythm of the movement? Yes, anyone? See, what does the rhythm means? Rhythm means again and again. Okay? Or you can say the reoccurrence or the regular beat, whatever you say. Means the, for example, the beat of the drum, means in a musical note we have the beat of the drum. So if we see that, that is the rhythm of the beat, right? For if we take the example in our body, what are the muscles that are continuously or that are performing its action in the rhythm lifelong? See, in our body we have the respiratory muscles, we have our heart muscles because heart is beating regularly, and respiratory muscles are also continuously acting, means with the contraction and the alternative relaxation, right? Contraction means you're breathing on, or your what we say, inhalation, right? And followed by what? Followed by exhalation. Likewise, in the heart, we have the systole followed by diastole. Okay, so these are the rhythmic activity or the rhythm of the movement. Now I'll take new slide to make you understand. Just give me a second. Okay, if we talk about the rhythm of the movements, see, if we talk about, these are the involuntary muscles, right? But if we talk about the voluntary muscles, let's say the skeletal muscle, right? What the skeletal muscle does, it does the action, right? It makes your movement with the help of your muscles, right? But if we see, these muscles can also work for the very long time, right? If we give them the proper rest, if we give them the proper rest, these skeletal muscles are performing the action, means they can perform the action for very long time, like your breathing and heart muscles, they are performing your action throughout the lifetime, right? Likewise, your skeletal muscle can also perform the action for very long time, but if we give them the proper rest, right? Followed by proper rest. In the rest period, what it does in the rest period means your muscle relaxes, right? And it got the time to remove the waste from it. Okay, waste like what? Like what waste? Yes, anyone? Your metabolic waste, and it gets the sufficient time to replenish the oxygen. Okay, so if you provide the appropriate time for the relaxation, your skeletal muscles can also work for the very long period of time, right? But if we talk about the age, okay, it means your rhythm is differentiate with the age, means with the advancing age your rhythm slows, right? If we compare in the children, the rhythm is fast as compared to the adults, right? and if we compare it with the older age, right? So your rhythm it continue changes with the age, right? And if you give the proper time to relax, your skeletal muscles also work with the rhythm and for the longer period of time, right? And if we say here that I have talked about this, but if we say if your muscles are working rhythmically very fast or too slow, then it can cause the faulty time, right? Means if you are for example you have to flex your shoulder, right? Rhythmically your flexion of the shoulder is like this, means not taking so much time or not taking very slow time or very fast time. But if you are doing it very fastly, means your rhythm is too fast, then you think your movement is efficient? No, your time is also not efficient and your movement will also be not efficient. And with the same, if you are doing it very slowly, then also your rhythm of the movement is very slow, but your timing is also hampered with this. Along with that, efficiency of the movement is also not be there, right? So for the movement to be efficient, your timing and rhythm should be efficient. Okay, so with this, the rhythm of the movement is clear, and now we will move to the next topic, that is your nervous control of the movement. Okay, so the nervous control of the movement. Now if you see, we know that the motor unit which we have studied, right? Motor unit, it is what? It is the functional unit, or it is a functional unit of the neuromuscular system. Now you know what is the neuromuscular system? The nerves, and where it forms a synapses with the muscles, right? That is called your neuromuscular junction. So the motor unit, motor unit is the functional so it is the functional unit of neuromuscular system, right? Now if I draw here to make you understand, see, this is your neuron, right? And for example, this is your nerve fiber and this is your muscle, right? And you know that one neuron along with the nerve endings on the muscle fiber makes your one motor unit. This is your one motor unit, right? We know that, we have studied, right? So this is your functional unit of the neuromuscular system. This is the functional unit of the neuromuscular system, fine. And if I tell you that, to make you understand that how the movement is controlled by your nervous system, that is the topic, right? Nervous control of the movement. You know that motor unit is the functional unit of the neuromuscular system. Now if you say here, we know that let me make one diagram for you. This is your midbrain, pons, medulla and your spinal cord, right? And this is your cortex. If you see, here is your spinal cord, right? Fine. If I draw the spinal cord structure here in detail, this is a transverse section of the spinal cord which is present over here, and I taken it out, right? If you see here that this is your dorsal root, right? and this is your anterior horn. If you see the descending tracts which comes downwards from the brain and it forms the synapses over here, from here your anterior horn cell, this is your anterior horn cell, and from here the synapse or the another neuron through the internuncial neuron, it will gives the impulses to the muscle, right, or it will transmit its message to the muscles through the neurons, right. For example, this is a neuron and this is the nerve endings which are supplying to the muscle. You are getting my point? Suppose this is a motor unit. We have talked about it that many of the motor units which are supplying the muscle, right, so which are supplying the muscle fibers, so they are many motor units combined together, right, they are supplying one muscle, and many nerve endings supplying different muscle fiber of the muscle. We know that, right. What I try to say here is that this is your anterior horn cell, right, and this is your anterior horn cell which plays very important role. See, whenever muscle has to contract, right, whenever your muscle has to contract, so when your muscle has to contract, the impulses are discharged by your anterior horn cell, right. Impulses are discharged by your anterior horn cell through the neurons, then only it will reaches to the muscle, right. But you know from where the anterior horn cell gets the impulses, or from where it is influenced? It is influenced from various parts of the body, right, and from the brain. Let us see how. See, for example, let us take one situation. Uh, if you have touched the hot object, right, if you have touched the hot object, then that that temperature sensation is carried by your ascending tract and through the dorsal horn, and it will reaches the brain, fine. So it carries the sensation from body, right, from body receptor. Which receptor? Your thermal receptor, right, your thermal receptor, it takes the sensation through the ascending tracts, and from there it computes the message in the brain, and then from the brain your descending tracts come into play, which send its impulses to the anterior horn cell, and then anterior horn cell discharge its impulses that take your hand away fast so that it won't get burned, otherwise it will get burned, fine. So this is your reflex arc, you know that. I am telling you that anterior horn cell which is discharging its impulses to the muscle through the neuron, right, through the neuromuscular junction, that is called not the junction, I must say, through the neuromuscular system, which is your motor unit, fine. And these anterior horn cell which I am talking about, these anterior horn cell, it's getting its impulses from the body, right. Why? When if the no thermal receptors are there, it won't get taken the sensation, right, and it will be taken by the ascending tracts, and so from the body it takes a sensation, and in the brain also it has the areas from where these information come. So from different parts of the body and the brain, the anterior horn cell gets its impulses or receive its impulses, and then it sends its impulses or discharge its impulses to the neuromuscular system or to the motor unit, by which your your muscle contracts, then it responds to take its hand away or flex his or her arm to take it away so that it won't get burned, or in any situation, right. This is the procedure, you get it. And if you get it, let me take a new slide and make you understand one more concept. See here, now you know that your anterior horn cell is discharging the impulses to the muscle, right. Then only it gets then only it responds, your muscle responds according to the demand which is placed upon the body to the from the environment, right. And when now I say the patterns of the movement, the patterns of movement. See, now these patterns of the movement, what does that means? Patterns of the movement means how your muscle will contract, means to what extent it has to contract and how it is going to contract or relax, right? See, I told you that your responses are made in the brain. It computes the information in the brain. So here are the initiating areas which are planning the movement, which are planning your patterns, that how you should respond, right? These whatever it computes, it discharges its impulses to the neurons which are present in the descending tracts, and that only discharges impulses to the anterior horn cell, which further discharges impulses to the muscle, right? Now we have the two type of patterns, right? For example, we have the voluntary movement and we have the reflexive movement. So if you see that when the voluntary movement is initiated, when it is initiated, for example, I have to do something. For example, I have to bring a pen or I have to take a pen from the shelf, right? If the shelf is above me, so I have to flex my shoulder to take the pen, right? So it is my conscious effort, I know it, right? So voluntary movement arises by the uh, or voluntary movement arise from the stimulation of the conscious effort. Means you know that you have to flex your shoulder to take the pen, right? That you know, that is your conscious effort, right? That is your conscious effort which may or which brings your voluntary movement. Means your conscious efforts brings your voluntary movement, so it arises from the stimulus of the conscious effort. But if you see the reflexive movement, for example, we have talked about the situation that you touch the hot object, right? And if you touch the hot objects, it is you don't know that what you have to do. Suddenly you just flex your elbow and take it away from the object. You don't know that you have to flex your elbow so that you have to take it away. Means it is not the conscious effort, it is the, it is which effort? It is the effort which is bring by or arise from the stimulation of the sensory stimulation. You got the sensory stimulation. What is that? Sensory stimulation is your hot object, which you get the sensation from the receptors that it is hot, and what thinks, where it thinks that it is hot, in the brain it computes the information that it is hot and it is dangerous for you and you have to take it away, otherwise it will hurt you. Fine. So your reflexive movement is also the pattern of the movement and it is also controlled by the nervous system like your voluntary movement, but it arises from the stimulation of the or it arises from the sensory stimulation. Now you understand what is sensory stimulation. For example, in this case is your hot object, right? So this is your reflexive pattern of movement, means this is not a conscious effort, you don't make the effort consciously, it is suddenly, it is sudden happens because your brain computes that it is very dangerous and you have to move your hand away, otherwise it will get hurt. So it is a sudden response, you don't make a conscious effort or you don't think about it, it is a sudden, just it is a sudden pull of your muscle. So that comes under your reflexive movement pattern. That's it. With this, your introduction to the movement completes. We have talked about the movement, that what is movement, and then we talked about the levers. Then we arise that how the force is applied, that it is internal or external force. Then we talked about the various forces that acting upon it and how it is acting, right? And then if we see, we talked about the how, what are the forces, and I told you that which forces are acting on it, types of movement and posture. Then we talked about the types of muscle contraction. Then we have talked about the type of muscle work, right? And these all includes under the muscle work if we see. Then we have talked about the range of the muscle work, that we have the fuller range, inner range, outer range, and middle range. Then we have talked about the strength of the muscle contraction. After that we had the talk on motor unit, that what is it. Then we have the discussion on the group action of the muscle, and then we talked about the timing the movements, patterns of the movement, rhythm of the movement, and then we have talked about your nervous control of movement. So these are the topics which are included in the introduction of the movement. If you have any doubts in it, post me in the comment section, and just please watch my video, like it, share it, and do subscribe my channel, and tell me whatever problem you are facing in the comment section. I'll try to solve it, and tell me whatever you want in the new video. I'll try to make it. Thank you so much.